Good morning. It's working extra quick this morning. Awesome. Wonderful news. At least somebody is, because I'm certainly not. It is Wednesday, March 22nd, and it is 9:01 a.m. I'm a minute late. I'm sorry. Late for what? For PB Reads the Bible, because that's what this is. This is our small group. We live life together. We share life together. And also we read from the Bible because that's what that means. I'm PB. I'm Pastor Brian, pastor here at Christ UMC in Waynesboro, and I look forward to these opportunities to get together with you to do this work. So here's what we're doing today. Today is episode 7 on our journey through the book of Esther, and we're looking at chapter 8 of Esther. We're gonna go through chapter 8 today. And then next week, we will be gathering. Should double check my calendar just to make sure. But yes, I am clear for next week. So we'll be gathering together on Tuesday. That'll be our next one, Tuesday the 28th. Oh, and actually, we might finish on Tuesday. We might not need Wednesday, and then we're probably going to take a break for a couple of weeks because the week after that is Holy Week, which is a little bit filled with stuff to do, and of course Easter, and then I'm going to be taking a week's vacation. So actually covering over 2 weeks, but we'll be back. I might have an announcement for you next week as far as exactly when we'll start up our next session and what it'll be on. And go Eagles, even though they lost the Super Bowl, but that's okay. I still support my team. But yes, it's time for PB Reads the Bible, our opportunities to gather together, and which, like I said, I love, and I love knowing who it is that's joining, whether you're joining live at 9:03 on Wednesday, March 22nd, or you're here some other time. Let me know. And I see you got a couple people checking in. Romper room roll call. Excuse me. Shouldn't have had that Oreo. Good morning, Maureen. It is so good to have you. We're glad you're here today, too. Good morning, John and Cindy, and good morning, Marcia. All right. We got people joining in live. Wonderful. And everyone's checking in so far. Cool. Need another sip. I needed that extra cup of coffee this morning. Got it from Rutter's. Got to get ready for my kids. They're going to be coming over with all kind of energy, and I have to stay energized to be with them in a good way, a fun way. So I know I tell you every week, every episode, I tell you, keep your eyes and ears open for what God is doing. And so I'm going to share one with you. About a week and a half ago, I got an email. And at first I only saw part of it because it would come up on my watch. I was in the other room. But it was someone identifying who they were, and they said that they were a parent of a student at Noah's Ark. So I kind of went, oh, great. Without reading the rest of the email, I went, oh, great. What's this complaint going to be about? Because typically, people tend to want to complain more than compliment about things, shall we say, or praise. And so I thought it was going to be a complaint from one of the parents about something that was going on. And I finished up what I was doing. I was chatting with the secretary, going over stuff, our daily meeting. And I thought to myself, well, I might as well go read the message, get it over with. And I opened the email, and I released shouts of joy. Because it wasn't a complaint. It was the parent saying that they have one child who's about to not exactly age out. They don't live in Waynesboro area. They live in the Chambersburg area. But their child is about to go into kindergarten. They'll be going to kindergarten next fall. So they won't be part of our program anymore. And their older child has already had that happen as they're in third grade. But they're calling to say how much of an attachment they feel to the ark. First of all, they said it's going to be first time in 10 years that they're not going to be stopping here every day, on the way into work and on the way home from work. But they feel a connection there, and they also feel a connection to the church, in particular their younger child now to the church because of that new curriculum and because of what I do with the kids on Wednesday. So I don't want this to sound like I'm bragging about me. I'm bragging about the program. But she says that she comes home, every day, but especially every week on Wednesday, and just talking about all the fun stuff we're doing and everything that they're learning. And that's the important part there too. And her child is, I've already said her child is very connected. I really see engagement by this child. Like every week they ask good questions and they give good answers. And here's the topper to the whole thing, because I mean, it's great to hear that this program is working and the kids are learning things, right? And the parents now want to have both of their children baptized. So we are going to be doing that next month, going to be baptizing. God will be baptizing. I'll be officiating, but God will be pouring grace upon these two children's lives and into their lives and into their hearts. And I am holding out hope as well that this means that there's going to be a bigger connection between the parents and our church, our congregation. And I wanted to share that with you. I see God working in this ministry, in Noah's Ark, and in this new curriculum that we did have a little pushback by some people, but it's doing amazing things. God is doing amazing things through this ministry and through this curriculum. And so I just wanted to share that with you. We are a small group, so we share life. Excuse me. And we keep each other in prayer. So anything you want to share, put it in the comments section, and we will keep each other surrounded in prayer, not only this today, but throughout the week. And if you have updates or something, obviously put that in there in comments. And again, all that goes with whether or not you're joining live on Wednesday morning. Whenever you're joining, you can put those kind of things in there. I do go back in and check things. I didn't go back into yesterday's. Well, I did yesterday. I did this morning, so I don't know if anything came up overnight. I would like to share that our brother Gooey, Guy Camp from here at the church, surprised everyone at church council last night by showing up, walking into the room, using a cane, but moving faster than he should be, probably. So I thank you for your prayers for Gooey, and he thanks you for your prayers, and he's doing well. And like somebody said, I'm sure Nancy was glad he was out of the house last night, and I'm sure that's true too. So let's have a moment of prayer for inspiration and illumination, and then we'll get into our scripture and announcements. Gracious God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity to get together in this way with each other. Thank you for your amazing grace and activity in our lives. Help us to always be open to see what you want us to see and go where you want us to go. Help us to be good followers of your Son, Jesus. And it is in his name that we pray as we take a look at some scriptures. Amen. All right. So yeah, announcements. This is it for this week. We'll be back Tuesday, the 28th, which is good. Oh yeah, speaking of which, so hopefully we will get done on Tuesday, because chapter 9 and chapter 10, neither one is very long. Chapter 10 in particular is really only a few verses, as I recall. Let me just double check that. Yeah, chapter 10 is only like 3 verses. So we should be able to accomplish our task of getting everything done on Tuesday. That's good, because Wednesday I have I won't be able to be here because I'll be at the dentist getting some final work done on a broken tooth. Wonderful. Sunday, of course, we have worship at 8:15 and 10:45. Both of those are live in person here in the sanctuary. We'd love to have you join us. But if you can't, of course, the 10:45 will continue to be live streamed. So you join us that way. The announcements and bulletin will be posted on Facebook and on our website on Friday, that as usual, sometime late afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock. Encourage you to go through that. The newsletter should be coming out in the next couple days as well, so you can look for that. If you haven't checked out the new and improved website, we encourage you to do so and give us feedback if there's any issues, anything that's not working properly, or if there's other things you want to see there. I heard from someone it's so easy to get to, it's very easy from there to get to YouTube recordings. It's very easy to get to recordings, especially YouTube, from there, and everything's like right there, which is great. And they were thankful for that, and we're glad that works well, because that was the intent, trying to make things as easy as we can. April 2nd is Palm Sunday. And then, of course, April 9th is Easter. Good morning, Bonnie. April 9th is Easter, and Holy Week is in there. Thursday, April 6th will be Holy or Maundy Thursday, depending on how you typically refer to it, understand it, whatever your tradition is. We will be doing that in a combined worship with Faith UMC, and hopefully also with St. Paul's AME Church. Not sure if they'll be able to join us or not. Good Friday, and that's at 7 p.m. Don't know if that's going to be live streamed or not. I'm not sure what their capability is, so I have to find out. Good Friday is at 7:30 in the morning at the YMCA. It's a combined worship there at the Y. And I think that's all I needed to say. Oh, well, Easter Sunday, the 9th, we will have 6:30 in the morning. The YMCA is at 7:30 on Good Friday. At 6:30 on Easter Sunday is the Waynesboro Fellowship of Churches sunrise worship at Green Hills Cemetery, being led by Church of God, which I think is the full title is Restoration Church of God. Downtown, they'll be leading the worship, but we're all joining together up there at Green Hills Cemetery that morning. Then we have worship at 8:15 and 10:45, and in between we're having breakfast. So if you're going to be here that day, we'd love to have you join us for breakfast. There's going to be a sheet to kind of sign up for, make reservations for the breakfast, just so we make sure we have enough food. If you're going to be here on the next 2 Sundays, you can do that yourself. If you're not going to be, just call the office or email the office or me, and we'll add you to the list for that day. All right, that's enough talking about that kind of stuff. Time to talk about the Bible. So we're on Esther chapter 8. So Haman is done. Haman is done, quite literally. And again, we think, okay, everything, roll credits. Not quite, because his plot is still technically in effect. His plan to kill all the Jews is still technically in effect. And that their lives are hanging in the balance. So now the author is going to turn his attention to that. So picking up chapter 8, verse 3. We read the first 2 yesterday because those were a transitional kind of thing, just finishes it up. So verse 3, then Esther spoke again to the king. She fell at his feet, weeping and pleading with him to avert the evil design of Haman the Agagite and the plot that he had devised against the Jews. The king held out the golden scepter to Esther, and Esther rose and stood before the king. Pause. Okay, so then Esther spoke again. doesn't show any kind of a time lapse. We can presume that this is taking place the same day as everything else has taken place. It's not like it's a whole time later. And we might think, the king holds out his scepter. This isn't like he did earlier to give her permission to be there, because she's already there. This seems to be more of a just like he's extending his scepter for her to, in support of her, and to encourage her, but the author sets this whole scene up. It's loaded with emotion, and remember, that is what the king is driven by. He's very emotional, and he's easily swayed by that. Esther really takes up on this, especially this beginning part, because this is so out of her character. We have not seen her as a quote-unquote hysterical woman, that old trope, which was never correct and never right. But we never see her being depicted as that. But now she is getting emotional, and she falls at the floor weeping and pleading. And again, we're the Haman the Agagite, okay? He is the enemy. The author is being clear that he is the enemy, not Gentiles and not the king. Haman the Agagite, he's the enemy. The king held out the, okay. She rose and stood before the king. Now listen to her words. She is laying it on, we might say. She is really playing things up, and she's not blaming him. If it pleases the king, and if I have won his favor, and if the thing seems right before the king, and I have his approval, let an order be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote, giving orders to destroy the Jews who are in all the provinces of the king. Pause. See, she's not blaming the king, and she's laying it on, like those four things repeatedly. If it's okay with the king, all right. If it pleases you, if I have won your favor, if it seems right before you, if I have your approval. Haman the Agagite, bad guy. Let's get rid of the stuff he did. Okay. Continuing, and finally is naming them as Jews, which presumably would just be ethnic, not okay. So it's coming back to this whole ethnic racial stuff. But they've named them as Jews. Picking up verse 6. For how can I bear to see the calamity that is coming on my people? Or how can I bear to see the destruction of my kindred? And then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and to the Jew Mordecai, see, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hanged him on the gallows because he plotted to lay hands on the Jews. You may write as you please with regard to the Jews in the name of the king, and seal it with the king's ring. For an edict written in the name of the king and sealed with the king's ring cannot be revoked. Pause. Okay, so the king, and so she's named them as Jews, claimed them as her kindred. The king, and notice that verse 7. The king, Ahasuerus, Queen Esther, and the Jew Mordecai. Here, and it's not being used as an epithet or an insult, it's being used as a title, virtually equivalent to king and queen, or just underneath, as opposed to Haman, who wanted that kind of a title, wanted to be right up there near the top, and never got the title, was only ever referred to as Haman, or Haman the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews, was never given a good title. Here, Mordecai is being given the title. The king sums up what he's done already and says, here, you do what you want. You've got the king's ring. Seal it that way. Nothing can change, which is basically the same thing he had done with Haman when he had distanced himself from what Haman wanted to do. So he's willing to do it, but he's not willing to do it himself, even here. Picking up from there, verse 9. The king's secretaries were summoned at that time in the 3rd month, which is the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day, and an edict was written according to all that Mordecai commanded to the Jews and to the satraps and to the governors and the officials of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces, to every province in its own script and to every people in its own language, and also to the Jews in their script and their language. Pause. Okay. So the dating is weird because this actually is like, I don't know, 6 months, I think it's like 9 months later, something like that, something weird. So we're not sure of what the time lag is. One of the other versions of the stories changes the date, so it's much closer to this one, which obviously is seems to be an obvious like trying correction to the story. One scholar says it's the number of days equivalent to the number of years that the people were in exile in Babylon, which is possible, but doesn't seem to make sense because the author has never been that the author has always been more obvious with symbolism and stuff like that. He's never been that that shy or that much of an undertone. He's just been boom right out there with stuff. So that doesn't seem likely. But you'll notice where I emphasize things because they're doing, and if we turn back, it's almost word for word the same thing that's happened 2 times before, right? They're going to be using the kingdom's postal service to get this message out there, and they go through all those details of who's getting it, and it's going to be in all of their languages. But this time there is an addition. There's a change in the formula because it's going also to the Jews in their script and their language. They're not listed separately in the other, especially in Haman's, but also not in that first one that the king sent out, trying to get, every household, the man is going to be in charge and the woman can't say anything. So here they're adding specifically the Jews. So it's going to be sent out in Hebrew as well to everyone. Picking up from there, he wrote letters in the name of King Ahasuerus, sealed them with the king's ring, and sent them by mounted couriers riding on fast steeds bred from the royal herd. So very special horses made raised specifically for this task, extremely fast. Continuing, by these letters, the king allowed the Jews who were in every city to assemble and defend their lives, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate any armed force of any people or province that might attack them, with their children and women, and to plunder their goods on a single day throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. A copy of the writ was to be issued as a decree in every province and published to all peoples, and the Jews were to be ready on that day to take revenge on their enemies. So the couriers, mounted on their swift royal steeds, hurried out, urged by the king's command. The decree was issued in the citadel of Susa. Pause. All right. So this special message is going out in the king's name with the king's signet, saying that the Jews are allowed to defend themselves against their attackers, their enemies, who presumably on the day assigned by Haman are going to still come after them. Because even though Haman's gone, they're there are other people who are anti-Semitic and are going to want to destroy, what was it? Kill, destroy, and annihilate, right? Yeah, destroy, kill, and annihilate. Notice they're using the same words here that Haman had used in his decree, his edict of what to do to the Jews. The Jews are now being given the same verbs to do these things to your enemies. So presumably, without this, they wouldn't have permission to defend themselves. But now they're saying, hey, go for it. You can do it. Be ready. This is going to be happening. You need to be ready to defend yourself against your enemies, and you've got the king's permission to do so. Now, there is that weird phrase in there, with their children and women. This is towards the end of verse 11. And the NIV translates it, and their children, women and children. Might attack them and their women and children. So depending on how you read it, we're not sure who the women and children are, because the Hebrew is not very clear as to who the there is, who the women and children belong to. Is it the Jewish women and children? And so you're supposed to attack these people that are presumably coming not only to attack you and your women and children, which is the way the NIV translates it, or are you supposed to be, or are they giving you permission to not only kill your attackers, but also their women and children, which kind of sounds like the NRSV sounds kind of like that. But it's a little bit vague in the NRSV, which is actually a really good translation, because it's vague in the Hebrew. It's vague in the Hebrew. We don't know. We don't know. Is it the Jewish women and children, and so you're defending them, like the NIV says, or are they also supposed to attack, destroy, kill, and annihilate the attackers, women and children, as part of a holy war? It's part of a holy war, and that would be, the rules from way back in the Old Testament, as far as how you were supposed to conduct a holy war. You don't let, you kill all your enemies. You don't let any of them live. Right? And the edict goes out to everyone, and the decree was issued in the citadel of Susa. Remember, the citadel is like the city within the city. City within the city. Picking up from there, verse 15. Then Mordecai went out from the presence of the king, wearing royal robes of blue and white, with a great golden crown and a mantle of fine linen and purple, while the city of Susa shouted and rejoiced. Pause. So Mordecai seems to have attained everything that Haman wanted for himself. Remember, even Haman had described, what should be done for a man who has pleased the king and stuff like that. Thing he was talking about himself, saying, "Oh, you should be given these royal robes and all that stuff." Now, Mordecai, not only did Mordecai receive them temporarily then, a great embarrassment to Haman, but now he has actually achieved them as a permanent thing. He's wearing them, not just as part of a little parade, but he's wearing them. And a golden crown doesn't necessarily mean an actual crown. Could also be translated as like turban. Okay. So we don't want to think that he's king. He's not, but he has attained a rank and level and position that Haman only dreamed of. And the ending of that verse, while the city of Susa shouted and rejoiced, and this would be the whole city, not just the citadel. But if you turn back several chapters to after Haman's edict had been read, and Haman and the king had their banquet and were drinking too much, the city was thrown into confusion, right? Because they had no idea. They didn't understand why they were supposed to be killing Jews. Here, now that they're being told you don't have to, and the Jews can defend themselves, the city is shouting and rejoicing. Continuing, for the Jews, there was light and gladness, joy and honor. In every province and in every city, wherever the king's command and his edict came, There was gladness and joy among the Jews, a festival and a holiday. Furthermore, many of the peoples of the country professed to be Jews because the fear of the Jews had fallen upon them. End of chapter 8. So, where after Haman's edict, Haman had a feast. After Mordecai's edict, let's say, all the Jews have a feast and a festival throughout the entire empire. The entire empire. They're all very happy and joyful and light. There's light. And many of the peoples of the country professed to be Jews because the fear of the Jews had fallen upon them. And again, the author is intentionally vague. What does he mean that they professed to be Jews? And what does he mean by fear of the Jews? A couple things. It could be just merely fear of the Jews attacking them and killing them because they think they're enemies. Could also be more of a wonder of the Jews, like we say that wisdom begins with fear of the Lord, as in the Proverbs, and it's not a fear like terror. It's a fear. It's a better understanding. A translation of that word is awe. So this could be more related to that kind of an idea, that they're drawn to the Jews because of something, and we're never told what, and what kind of a profession to be a Jew, because remember, this book there's nowhere in here talking about Jewish religious life. They're just Jews ethnically, not necessarily religious practicing Jews. And we could say the same thing about these folks who are joining. They're kind of claiming that they want to become part of that ethnicity. Doesn't say anything about them wanting to start to follow the actual religious practice. Again, one of the other versions of the story, wanting that religiosity brought in there, says that they were all circumcised, and that they went that far with becoming Jewish because they're trying to make that point about the religiousness. All right, my friends, that's it for today. We finished chapter 8. Woo! So next Tuesday we should finish. We should finish everything up. We will. We're going to finish everything up on Tuesday, the 28th. I do pray that this has been beneficial to you, that you've learned something, relearned something, that God has spoken to you in some way today through what we've read and said. As you go about your days, not just today, but every day, keep those eyes and ears, physical and spiritual, open to everything that are living, loving, active God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, say, thank you, God, and then tell somebody about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be blessed. Be blessed. Bye.